Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. One of you just made what I thought was a really cool suggestion, which is try doing some talks recommending unconventional classics for kids, to get kids into the music, to get them started. And I thought to myself, well, gee, I didn't have a conventional classical music beginning. My parents did not listen to Bach and Mozart. They listened to Beethoven, yes. And I didn't know Brahms until after I knew Dvorak. I came at it kind of backwards. And I started mostly with 20th century music and only slowly worked my way back. And I think there are a million ways to get into it. You never know what's going to work. So I figured, that's a cool suggestion. Let's give it a shot, because there are some pieces that I think are absolutely wonderful for kids and which tell us something about how they listen and how they respond to music. And I can only do this based on my own personal experience and the experience I've had with other kids. Now, as you know, I did a whole video about how, I'm not interested in young people. Well, kids are not young people. Kids are really young people. So that's different. Young people in the classical music world is defined as anyone between the ages of 25 and 50. Those are the young people we don't care about. But before then, well, there's still hope. And I do believe that the best way, actually, to get your kid into classical music is simply to have it around them. All kinds of music, anything that you can do, and see what sticks, because you just never know what it's going to be. So I'm going to be suggesting a wild variety of things. And we'll see what sticks if you want to try it out. And if you happen to allow your child to watch these videos, because, in YouTube, you have to be very careful if you're doing a video for children. So I don't indicate that any of these are for children, because there are all kinds of restrictions and problems and hoops that you have to jump through. If you're doing something for children, I leave it up to you parents to guide your children to what is appropriate. And what can be more appropriate than jolly old Uncle Dave, right? Here I am, jolly old Uncle Dave. And remember, if you are the child in question watching this, hi, I'm Dave. And let me just tell you, whatever your parent, your father or your mother or your grandmother, your grandfather or aunt or uncle or me or any of us are about to inflict on you, just remember, children, you, my dear, are a blank slate. You're just waiting to be filled with the wonderment that is music and knowledge and information and all of those things. And because you're a blank slate, there isn't anything we can do that can't be undone. We can just erase it. It's take the eraser and it'll all go away. And if you don't like what you're hearing, well, think about the fact that in a few years, to 10 years, 15 years, however many years, you will be able to do the same thing to your children. And that should give you some amount of satisfaction. So, the first piece that I have selected in my series, Unconventional Music for Regular Kids, it's just good regular kids, not weird, strange, creepy kids, of which there is probably no shortage either, but I'm not going to go there. Unconventional Music for Regular Kids is the central movement, Putnam's Camp at Reading, Connecticut, from Charles Ives's Three Places in New England. And I know this works. I know this works to turn you on to music, to turn children on to music, because it worked for me. How did it work for me? Well, it just so happens that Charles Ives, was a fascinating guy. He was actually a part-time musician. His music was so wild and so crazy that nobody wanted to hear it. So he had to become an insurance salesman. And he was a very successful insurance salesman. And it was only many, many years later, after he was gone, that people started to pay attention to his music and realized that it was fascinating and full of new and fresh ideas that had never been done before. And his music was principally about growing up in Connecticut because that's where he was from. He worked in New York City, but he was from Connecticut. He was born in Danbury, where his father was the bandmaster in Danbury, and his father was into experimenting with all kinds of instruments and playing them in all kinds of odd ways, and making instruments conflict with each other rather than all blend together the way they normally do. He wanted things to be surprising and shocking. And his music really is. It's still shocking, even today. But the reason I know his music so well is that he went to my high school. And the name of the high school was Hopkins Grammar. It's now called the Hopkins School in New Haven, Connecticut. And then he went to college at Yale University, which is also in New Haven, Connecticut. And so when I was in that high school, we used to listen to a lot of Charles Ives. And the Yale Symphony Orchestra would come to our high school and they would play Charles Ives programs. They would play programs with his music. And we didn't find it hard to listen to. We found it very, very interesting and really a lot of fun because we recognized a lot of the tunes, you see. Ives liked to use the kinds of tunes that he heard when he was growing up and that the band in Danbury used to play on all of the big national holidays like the 4th of July and Memorial Day and New Year's and whatever. And he put all of those tunes into his music. And you can hear them in this particular piece. Now, Putnam's camp in Reading is a wonderful place. We used to go there all the time on our school trips. It has a cave, a little cave. It's called Philip's Cave, where an old Revolutionary War soldier, after the war, he came back to the camp, which was all falling apart by then because the soldiers weren't using it anymore. And he lived in this cave like a hermit. And he just ran around stealing people's chickens. I mean, that's how he made a living until all the neighbors complained and they found a way to sort of get rid of him and get the nuisance to stop. But it's a wonderful park, and we used to go there when we were kids. And so I've tried to recreate a feeling of a Sunday or a weekend or a holiday with lots of kids running around and all kinds of things going on, and all kinds of things going on simultaneously. Because Ives didn't just write the tunes. He wrote what was happening while the tunes were playing, which means it could be other tunes. It's like going to a park where people are camping and everyone's playing their radio, and they're all playing something different all at the same time. That's what Ives was doing, and that's what you have to think about. Think about being in an amusement park where all those rides have different music coming from them, and you get close to one and you hear some music come into focus, then it goes out of focus again, and then you hear people talking, and you hear banging and crashing, and maybe a fireworks display in the background. And at the end of this particular piece, two marching bands, each playing completely separate music, cross over the same street and kind of crash into each other. At least they crash into each other musically. I am assuming that walking, they sort of went around each other, but they keep playing the music that they play. And that's what makes this music so amazing and so very, very different from anything that we had heard before. And that's why it took Ives so long to become famous. But one of the things kids have, and I will say this to both adults and children, is you just listen to it and you don't have prejudices about things yet. You may have some, but they're like I said, we could just erase them and leave the mind and the ears clean and empty for Putnam's Camp in Reading, Connecticut. Now, this recording features James Sinclair, the Malmo Symphony Orchestra, and it's on the Naxos label. So here it is. Let's see how it goes over. I'm awfully curious to find out. Now, all of the things, I just want to say, all of the things in this series are going to be around 5 minutes or less. Nothing is going to be too long. So don't worry. It's only going to be about 5 minutes. And then if you don't like it, you can go on to whatever you're doing, or your parents might let you walk away anyway. We'll see how it works out. Putnam's Camp, Charles Ives, 3 places in New England. So that is my first suggestion for unconventional classics for regular kids. Things that we are going to avoid all of the standard classical repertoire in doing this series, and we'll see what happens. I'm very curious to get your reaction and that of the little ones under your care. So keep on listening, folks. That's always the important thing to do. Whether you like it, it's okay not to like it. You don't have to like it. But what you do have to do is like music. Like music enough so that you just want to stop for a few minutes and listen and see what it is and give it a chance and see what it does for you. And if you like it, listen to more of it, listen to it over again, and you're in business. So thank you for joining me. Take care.